you ready? You're a
All
bit of a recording princess. I don't know if I'll ask you back on the podcast. This is the No More Wasted Days podcast, and we're your hosts, Sarah Kaufman Bradstreet
and Heather PG. Grab your favorite NA drink and listen as we share vulnerable stories so you never feel alone on your alcohol-free journey.
And gain insights from us as we break down our most used tips and strategies that have kept us alcohol-free.
It's time to break free from wasting any more of your days to the drinking, blackout, hangover cycle.
Welcome to another episode of the No More Wasted Days podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sarah, and I'm joined by a very special guest host today.
I'm Sarah's better half, Ryan, her husband, and I'm excited to be on the show today.
All right. I'm super excited to have you on. Whenever I start doing I'm super excited, I start feeling like that Saturday Night Live skit of Sweaty Balls. You remember that one?
I remember Sweaty Balls. That was an all-time, that was like a classic.
Yeah, where they're like, oh, these are very good. Yes, for sure.
They're very sweaty balls.
Well, this is already starting out amazing. I actually have Ryan on the podcast today because Heather is taking a vacation, and I thought it would be really cool to talk about what it's like being sober together as a couple. And a lot of people ask me on social media, is your husband sober with you? Did he quit drinking? And it was actually his idea. So today we get to talk to him and hear all about how he came to this grand idea that was pretty life-changing for both of us. But before we dive into that, I want to invite you all to join me for an alcohol-free April. My next 30-day alcohol-free challenge will be starting on April 1st. And if you check out the link in the show notes, you can find out all of the details. It does come with 30 daily videos and emails, weekly email check-ins, one live group call, an online app where all the videos live, and you can check in below each video. And I work hard to reply to every single comment that happens during that challenge, and also a printable journal and printable workbook. These 30 days can be a kickoff for you to a lifetime of being alcohol-free and no longer feeling like you're stuck in that drinking blackout hangover cycle that I was stuck in not so long ago. If this sounds like something you're interested in, go check out the link in the show notes, and I will see you in the challenge.
Well, and just piggybacking on that, I just want to say how amazing our community is that's associated with the 30-day challenge. It's just, it's incredible the amount of support. People are in there all day, every day, sharing their successes, sharing their challenges, and it's just a really special place to be.
Yeah, and it truly is a kickoff for so many people. They do this 30-day challenge, and then I'll get contacted from people a year later or 2 years later, and they'll say, I started with your 30-day alcohol-free challenge, and I'm still alcohol-free today. So if you've been trying to have that lift off, this is a wonderful place to start. So, all right. Are we ready to get into your portion?
Yeah, let's jump in.
All right. The first thing I want to ask you is about your drinking history, yourself as a drinker, and then what led you to decide to quit.
Yeah. You know, I don't know. I feel like my path is like so many others. You know, you grow up, and my parents weren't drinkers at all, really, just like holidays and maybe the Super Bowl or something like that. But there's this perception in our society that like once you've reached age, that it's a rite of passage. You get to start drinking, and that's when fun starts. And so like we're all waiting till that milestone. Oh, we're 21. We can finally go out and do the thing. And it's we could spend a whole episode talking about the glorification of alcohol. But I guess the beginning of kind of my drink, I didn't drink in high school, maybe in my senior year towards the very end, but I wasn't a big drinker. I started when I went to college, and I lived with roommates, which were older. And we, as a lot of people do in college, start experimenting with alcohol and having some binge drinking episodes and all night parties and all that kind of stuff. And, that probably was the beginning of it. And I never felt like I had a problem. I always felt like I was, that's what you're supposed to do in college, was drink and party. And then as I graduated from college and I got my first job out of college, I had a boss that glorified alcohol as well. When we'd travel together, he would always be like, go down to the ice machine, grab 2 ices. He brought a bottle of vodka with us or a bottle of gin and make gin and tonics in the rooms. And he lived actually pretty close to where I lived. I was living with my father, and he lived pretty close. So we get off of work, and a lot of times I'd pop over to his house and we'd talk business and talk, and shoot the shit. And of course, when we were doing that, we'd pour a gin and tonic and have another beverage. So it just kind of extended the normalization of alcohol is everywhere. And then I started viewing alcohol as this like sophisticated thing. Like after I got out of college, the drinking party stage, and then like work. Okay, yeah, this is something you do with work. So learning how to make fancy martinis and learning how to make all these fresh drinks with fresh juices and learning about the best wines and decanters and all this stuff. Because, if you didn't have a problem if you were buying all the fanciest stuff.
Oh, no.
Uh,
You were definitely a much more fancy drinker and classy drinker than I was. I was like, whatever gets me drunk, that's what I'll use.
yeah. I definitely tried to elevate it as like a fancy thing. And then, there should have been little moments along the way that were hints. I actually did end up getting a DUI when I was in my 20s sometime. I can't even remember how old I was. And
Yeah, it was before me.
and my brother was in my car with me. We were just off to watch a movie, and was pulled over and blew over the legal limit. And that it definitely scared me enough that I was a lot more careful about when I would drink and drive.
Hmm.
But I still didn't think I had a problem. It was just that I caught a bad break. I was a little bit over the limit. I shouldn't even got pulled over. All making excuses for things.
Yeah.
But then, Sarah and I met, and we were both like really liking to party.
Yeah. We were drinking party buddies.
Yeah, and
Buddies with benefits.
and so it fit really well. We'd go out and have a drink, or we'd stay in and make some cocktails. And I don't know, it's hard to kind of fast forward. That kind of was our progression for until we stopped, and it maybe
Hmm.
kind of continued to escalate. But I think there was a couple moments that really kind of started me thinking about quitting. One was I was on this marketing conference in Thailand, and I was listening to one of the speakers up there, and somebody that I really respected had built a good sized business. And on his keynote speech, he had indicated and talked about his struggles with alcohol and that he had decided to quit. And at the time, it didn't mean a lot to me, but I think it planted a seed in me that the idea that you can still be fun, you can still be exciting, you can still be successful, and you can do it all without alcohol. So, and then there was a couple more occasions. One was Sarah and I went on this cruise trip, which I know Sarah's talked about before.
The cruise. That was a big moment for me, a changing moment.
And where we had the drink package, and it was an expensive drink package, and you were forced to pay it. And we were bound and determined to get all the value we could out of this drink package. And then I had a pretty wild and crazy 40th birthday party. And that,
Yeah.
and that kind of was another data point. And so I ended up reading This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, and I can't even remember how I came upon it. I think maybe it just came up in my Kindle one day, and all of those little seeds that had been planted made me consider the idea and to read the book to gather more information.
Yeah.
And, I remember I sat outside and on the deck and in the sun. It was right at the beginning of summer, which traditionally was kind of the beginning of us like starting
Right?
our drinking season.
Summer Sarah was going to come out soon.
And it just resonated with me. And I remember, coming up after finishing the book, and I told Sarah that I was like, I think I want to take a break from drinking. I think I want to stop. And
Yeah.
I think that was kind of the inflection point.
Yeah. And I was secretly very mad at you when you said that. It was very close to the weekend of Mother's Day, if not the weekend of Mother's Day, because I know that Mother's Day was my last day as a drinker. And I was totally like, what? what does this even mean? But also in my mind, I thought, yeah, right. Like, sure, I'll do this with Ryan to support him. And I'm not going to drink all by myself. Like, I'm always this little manager with my addictions. I've noticed that. Like, I have these little rules where it's like, well, then it's not a big problem. If I don't drink by myself a lot, then that's not a problem. And I didn't drink by myself because I had Ryan with me drinking right along. I mean, basically by myself because it was my partner at home. It's not like we were going out and socializing a lot. We were drinking at home. But when he said that, I was just like, yeah, we'll see. And I honestly thought we would make it 7 days and then I could convince you to start drinking again. But then I listened to the book and I was like, oh, okay. And I kind of thought, I'll give this a shot. Like, I will do this for 30 days. And I had definitely had moments. Like I was telling Ryan before we recorded this, when I was drunk is when I would say, I think I have a drinking problem. Like I feel like maybe I need to quit drinking. And then him being the good drunk partner he was would be like, oh no, not you.
We're all good.
We're all good. We just have to do this better. Like that was always the thing.
We can't drink whiskey by the fire anymore. That's what's gonna...
Let's make some rules. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Ryan definitely was the classier drinker. And I almost feel like that gave me this permission to be like, oh, it's not a big deal. We're drinking wine, even though by the end we were drinking the cheapest wine. But we always drank the best beer.
Yeah, that's true.
And you always drank the best scotch. Like Ryan had a scotch collection. That was hard to say goodbye to. It was kind of like, what do we do with all this?
Mm-hmm.
We had not one liquor cabinet. We had two when we cleared them out. So it was kind of a big deal. But yeah, we both read that book and it was a big change for both of us. And I feel like I went into it thinking this won't last very long, but I also went into it thinking if you can't do this for 30 days, it's a really red flag that you have a problem and you probably need to figure it out. So I had had like the devil and the angel on my shoulder, but I started feeling so good. So I was kind of like, okay, I will keep going. I'm going to keep this happening. And it really started a big journey for me. So I want to know, do you think it was a lot easier because we quit together?
Well, I mean, we don't have any data points to do it without it because
I know
we did it
People
together.
always ask that, yeah.
But I mean, it would have been a lot harder. Emotionally, I think would have been the hardest part to just not have somebody there supporting you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's inevitable that you'd probably feel some resentment if your partner was still drinking and you're trying to change your life, but your partner is there, having drinks. Sarah and I talked about this off the recording yesterday, and we were saying, maybe if it was your partner was going out to the bar after work and having one beer or something and then coming home, maybe it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But yeah, I can't really imagine trying to do it without having my partner on board. And the weird thing is we've heard from and talked to people when they've asked their partner to help them stop or to stop with them to do this challenge with me, even if it's just for 30 days. And a lot of times the response is, why should I do that when I don't have a problem? Or something along those lines.
I'm not the one with the problem.
And it's kind of funny to me that like you could almost turn that back around. And if it's not a problem, then what does it matter? Like,
mm-hmm.
why then going 30 days shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, that's just a little blip.
Yeah. So I think I would encourage everyone, even if your partner, truly doesn't have a problem, let them know, how important it is to you and your success and ask for their support and kind of going along with this like challenge, this journey with you.
Yeah. I actually put that in the notes farther down because people always ask for advice. Like, what should I do if my partner won't quit with me? I wish that my partner would quit. And one thing I always say to people is, have you actually asked them? Have you actually had the conversation where you say the words, this is really important to me. I could use your support. And a lot of times people say, no, I haven't asked that yet. And I think that's the first thing. And I think saying it that way too. This is really important to me. I need your support.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know every relationship is different, but I feel like anything, if I said that to Ryan, he'd be like, okay. Or if he said it to me, I'd be like, all right, because we entered an agreement together when we got married that we were going to help each other and help each other push to their biggest goals and biggest dreams. And if they had something they wanted to work towards, then that's what we would do. I completely understand that that's maybe not everybody's relationship and it's just different for everybody, but it's been something that's been really cool to do together. And it's hard to imagine us as drinkers, even though we were drinkers a lot longer than we've been non-drinkers in our relationship.
Yeah, it took up so much time in our life and
Hmm.
energy and yeah, mental
Mental
clarity.
capacity,
Capacity,
all the
yeah.
things.
Yeah, it's like
It's like,
yeah, we have Friday. You have to think about, okay, it's Friday. Should we stop early so we can? Oh, it looks like it's kind of sunny out. I bet
yeah,
we could drink a beer before we have to, I don't know.
get the kids from school.
Yeah,
That was big for us. Well, because we've worked from home and our kids got dropped off by the bus.
So yeah,
So
we
it was
could drink a
totally
beer
like,
and
oh,
drop
it's
down,
2:30. Yeah.
walk down to the bus stop.
Yeah, no problem. And I think about that now and I'm like, man, that's crazy. Now we pick up our kids from the bus stop and then it's still get a ton of stuff done. So I did ask people on Instagram for questions they might want me to ask you. And one that had a common theme was, what's the difference you see in me now
Mm.
being alcohol free? And I kind of wonder if you see a huge difference or not, since we both did it together. Because I was trying to think, well, what's the difference I see in Ryan? But do you see anything different in me?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that your confidence in yourself has grown so much. You've started No More Wasted Days as a business. We've taken on this huge project of building our own house. Like
Yeah.
those were things that I don't think could have been possible. I don't think you would have believed that they were possible for you to complete or accomplish when we were drinking.
Yeah, I always wonder if the house build thing, if we would have even come up with that. And I honestly think we came up with the idea to build a house while drinking. Like, I think it was one of our cockamamie, like, oh, we've been already drinking beer and wine, and now it's time to pull out the whiskey bottle around the fire. And hey, let's start talking about building a house. And I bet there's cabin kits out there. I bet they
Yeah.
just send you the package with directions and
It's
you
gonna
can
be
just put it together. It'll be so easy.
so easy.
Somehow our sober brains still went, yeah, you should do that. That drunk plan you had is going to be a great sober plan. I don't think drinking us would have been successful. I
No.
think we would have fought a lot on the build, and we actually don't fight on the build. People ask us that a lot. Like, do you argue on the build? And we really don't. It's
Well,
like
and even if
like you're going to work.
we could have finished it without fighting and killing each other, it would have taken us twice as long. Which
Oh my
it's
God. And it's already taking
taken
so
us
long.
so long. Yeah.
It's already taken us way longer than we thought it was going to. We thought it was going to take 1 year. And here we are almost 3 years later. We're very close now, everybody. I think. Yeah, I think about too, one of the differences I see in me is just that I don't pick these little fights with you anymore that I would when I was drunk. And where it would be, over the stupid stuff like an avocado pit in the sink.
Or a sponge.
Or a sponge. I just got rid of sponges. I got tired of arguing with you about that. But yeah, it would be things where I'd be like, in my drunk brain would get so fixated on it and be like, if he really loved me and he really supported me, he would stop doing this little thing. And why doesn't he do it? And I would decide that the best time to have this argument was, 3 or 4 beers in. And then I would be mad and buzzed. So I'm ruining the buzz, like, way to go me. But I would wake up in the morning sometimes and be like, oh, I got mad at Ryan last night. I still have to be mad at him this morning. I still have to be kind of, just so he knows, even though I would kind of go, well, that was stupid. And that's one of the things that I feel like I've gotten better at as a non-drinker is actually saying, hey, you said this thing. It hurt my feelings. Don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Or, hey, can you try to change your words?
I feel like our communication has improved a lot.
Yeah,
Since
I wasn't expecting that.
And, it's funny when we were both drinking, it's like 90% of the time, it seemed like we would, we like wouldn't drink too much, like,
Mhm.
where we were like breaking things or like,
Yeah.
it's not like we would get like fall down drunk, but we would drink enough to get buzzed.
Hmm.
But we each had our separate little moments where we would drink to black out or drink too much so that we were falling down and kind of making fools of ourselves, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that wasn't more of a kind of a trigger for us or of a insight, but it just seemed like, oh, this doesn't happen every time. So
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. Everybody gets too drunk every once in a while.
And we were both very supportive of each other when one of us would get too drunk. It was almost just like, oh, you drank too much last night and you did this and that and that. But it was never, I never felt like it was in this condescending tone when you would fill me in on things.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like you kind of made an ass of yourself last night. Oh, I did? And
Tell me what I did.
yeah, fill me in because I don't remember. And that was never in my mind like this weird thing. I thought that maybe all married couples had
Uh-oh.
these conversations. This was just kind of a normal thing. And we had a lot of fun drinking
Oh.
together. It's not like
Mhm.
it's almost like we were just very supportive of each other's drinking habits because it was so fun to drink and party together. So that was one thing I was really worried about when we quit drinking, that I would not have fun with you anymore and possibly not even like you anymore. I hate to say that, but it was just like, that's all we had known of each other. Did you
Yeah.
have fears like that? Or were you kind of like,
No,
and the thing is, like, we were together sober. Like, I knew you as a sober person also, but I just didn't know if we'd have fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that didn't honestly cross my mind. I knew that drinking was going to be hard to stop. I thought it was going to be harder, to be honest. But yeah, no, I didn't ever really have concerns about if we'd still have fun together or like each other.
Yeah, you had more faith than me.
Yeah, we kept the faith.
I was just not like, oh, I'm just not going to like him at all anymore. I think it was more just that I just was like, I hope we still can figure out how to have fun.
Yeah,
And
how is this going to change your relationship?
Yeah. Do you remember the first weekend we came up to the land,
Mm-hmm.
alcohol-free?
Yeah.
It was Memorial Day weekend. And I was like, I hope this is fun. Do you remember that trip? Because that's one I always use for people, like, as a, can you go camping without alcohol? Because when we used to come up here, it was camping. It's still basically camping. Now, but it's full time. But do you remember, did you have fun that weekend or not?
I don't remember. I mean, I remember that it was different.
Yeah, it was really different. It was nice to wake up and not have a hangover, because that was really my norm in the trailer, to wake up and feel awful.
Well, and we'd stay up so late too.
Yeah, because we'd get our kids to bed and then we'd have the fire going, and then we'd just drink around the fire and think, oh, this is living right here, looking up at the stars. And I mean, there were parts of it that were great, but it was just the aftermath the next day and trying to create memories with our kids. And I'm super hungover, and Ryan's having to be like, your mom needs to rest and then we'll totally go on a hike. And it's just kind of, I remember that weekend being really freeing in that sense, being like, we can go do anything we want to. I also remember it feeling incredibly long, like the longest. Like, it was just like the days were kind of like, what should we do now? Like, we've already gone and done Blackberry assassination. Now what should we do?
Yeah.
And okay, I guess we should read now. Okay, yeah, we'll read. Now what should we do? I guess we'll go down to the beach. It was just like, oh my God, how do I fill all this time? But luckily, I think we both looked at it as an opportunity to actually be like, yeah, let's fill this time and let's relax. I do remember that was one of the first times we came back from the land to our old house, and I felt relaxed. I didn't feel like I needed a whole nother 3 days to recover from our weekend at the land.
Yeah, and I feel like we got like some reading done. We were able to sit outside in the sun and read a book, and we wouldn't do that, or if we did, we would get a couple pages in, and then we'd be like, okay, that's enough. Let's have some beers now. Or we'd have beers while we were reading.
While we were reading, and then it didn't last long, and it's just like, I just kind of look back at that, and I think it's so strange that our normal was to just kind of live this life of chaos. So what are some of the things that made it easier for you in your alcohol-free journey? Like, what were some of your tips and strategies that you used, like get through a craving or get through get through a craving is probably all it really is in the beginning. You're kind of pushing those days and just adding up day by day by day. And the cravings are the hardest part in the very beginning.
Yeah. I think for me, it was really I think I was abnormal, to be honest. Once I had the idea in my mind that I was going to take a break from alcohol, I just didn't really think about it. I just was like, this is what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the cravings just didn't come. I think it was after a lot of silent contemplation and a lot of events like I talked about earlier, but I think I was just ready and I just
Yeah.
needed that tipping point to just say goodbye. Now, one thing I
Yeah.
will say, and when I was reading the book, I kept waiting and waiting and waiting for the line in the book that said, you had to stop drinking. You can't drink again. And I was prepared to just close the book and walk away and be like, this isn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't. I mean, even though it suggested that would be the best way and you're going to have the most success that way, but everybody can have their own levels of success in however they define it. So if taking a 30-day break once a year is success for you, then that's fine. So anyway, I don't know. It was a weird kind of boundary that I was waiting for somebody to tell me was an absolute.
Mm-hmm.
And when the permission was given to me to say that success is however you define it,
Yeah.
that really gave me the permission to say, okay, I can always start drinking again. like
Yeah. It's
I,
always available. So is it an option that is open to you still, or did you finally say, I'm done? Was there a point? Because I know for me, there was a point where I was like, I'm not going back to alcohol. But have you had that point? I've never asked you this.
I have little moments where my brain tells me, and I immediately think that my brain is just lying to me because
Yeah.
there's still that little seed of addiction or whatever you want to call it in there that's lying to me and telling me you can just be a normal drinker. You can have one drink, and it'll be fine. And it might be true,
Mm-hmm.
but the risk that our life turns back into what it was is
Yeah.
not worth the risk to find out.
Yeah.
So
Ex-
So that's kind of how I think about it. When that little voice starts talking to me and going, God, it would be cool if you could have a beer with your buddy right now. And I was, but why? Like
mm-hmm.
how is that going to, what is the risk? And is that an acceptable risk? And to me, every time I ask that, it's no. So, I mean, I can have an A beer if I want to have a beer with a buddy. So there's mechanisms that I can use to kind of solve that problem. So yeah, it does come up, but I think I'm able to overcome it and kind of think through that drink, like you say all the time,
Yeah.
and be like, it's just not worth the risk I want to take. So that's what I tell myself.
Yeah. That's kind of, I always tell people for a while, probably in the first year, I was like, oh, I'm done drinking forever. I'm never drinking again. And then as you get farther along on your journey, that voice really kind of goes, you weren't that bad. Even though I kind of go, no, you were pretty bad. Like when my voice tries to say, you weren't that bad, I'm like, it wasn't good. And then I do tell myself every now and then that I could have a drink when I'm 80. So I can cross that bridge when I'm 80, but I need to make it there first. I need to live a full life, not be numb, being 100% present for you, for the kids, for all of that. So that's kind of my way to get through it. And when people do say, are you done drinking forever? I mean, pretty much. I'm pretty sure when I hit 80, I'm not going to have a drink.
Yeah.
But it's kind of far away. So it is just like, and that it helps a lot of people. It's so funny because I always think that's kind of a funny thing I tell myself, but I have so many of the day makers say like, oh, I use that all the time now. I have an age that I tell myself, you can have a drink when you're this age. And it just puts my mind at ease and I stop freaking out about what it'll look like in the future. So that's a helpful one.
The one thing that I do wish is that we were kind of going into it blind. We had each other to support each other. But I think it would have been a lot more helpful if we would have had a community that we could have leaned on, that were going through kind of the same challenges and asking the same questions that we were. And we just didn't have that. And well, that's why I think the community part of No More Wasted Days, the Daymakers community, is such an important part of the process because it gives you that community feeling where you can ask your fellow peers, like, are you struggling with this? Are you having a hard time? How have you got past this craving? And it's evident by the activity levels in the group and how much, people praise the group. I mean, it's super active and people are always
Mhm.
talking about their successes and their failures. So
Yeah.
I wish we would have had something like that we could have leaned on when we were going through our break.
Yeah. And one thing I talk about really openly is that I didn't feel like AA was the right fit for me in the beginning. And I felt like, oh, that's only a place for alcoholics to go. And I don't think I'm an alcoholic. I had all these I don't know, these ideas in my head. I now kind of see that my ego was just kind of big and in the way. But I think if I would have known there was a community out there, not linked to anything like AA and totally different, or that just had that support system, that would have been a huge thing. And also that it's online. I love that because that was one of
Hmm.
the things with AA when I would think about it. I was like, how in the hell am I going to go to meetings? Like, there's no time in my day between getting the kids here and there. And now I'm supposed to go to meetings, and supposedly you're supposed to do so many meetings at a time. And I also just was like, I don't know if I'm the right person for this. So having a community like the Daymakers is something that's so beneficial. So if you're listening to us talk about it and you're thinking, okay, I need to try that out, I need to check it out, you can actually try out the Daymakers community for 1 week for $7. So $1 a day, way less than probably what you're spending on alcohol. I don't want to say what you're spending on alcohol because I don't know, but I know it's way less than what I was spending on alcohol each day. So you can check it out. You can be part of the private message thread community, part of the weekly videos, the weekly calls that we do, and just see. We're like a little family in there.
Yeah.
It's a tight-knit group. It's really cool.
Yeah. And Sarah and I are both in there answering questions and supporting the community and, sharing our own struggles when they come up.
Yeah. So I had one other thing I wanted to ask you before we hop off. I
Okay.
just wanted to kind of ask, what has been your difference in being a parent without
Mm.
alcohol? And I know, like right now, I feel like we're having a really hard time with our kids. They're tweens. They are about to turn 13. So I don't want to say that either of us feel like we are strong parents right now, but have you felt differences in your parenting since you quit drinking?
I don't know. It's hard because we got rid of one stressor and then we introduced other stressors into our life with building a business and building a house. So we
Mm-hmm.
took away one and we added two. So I feel like some of the stress that made parenting hard from alcohol, we replaced with building a business and building a house. I will say that just like the amount of time that it occupied in our brains
Mm-hmm.
when we should have been parenting, but we were more focused on drinking, those moments don't happen as much anymore. So I do think we're more present parents.
Mm-hmm.
But the bigger thing to me is, and I think this was probably one of the reasons why, Sarah and I were kind of the tipping point again, where we started thinking like maybe we need to think about living an alcohol-free life, was our kids were getting to the age where we knew that they would start remembering us as drinkers. And
Yeah.
we didn't want those memories to be, when they grow up and be like, oh, if only mom and dad wouldn't have been drinking so much beer, maybe we would have spent more time together. And I think that was a big motivating force for us to kind of stop, because we wanted to be good parents and spend as much quality time with our kids as we could. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that kind of hit home too a couple of times when we were like, ask the kids to grab us a beer or bring us another drink. And we were just like, this isn't right. This is not okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe it was one of the triggers, at least for me, that just kind of made me think we need to rethink this.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And both my parents were not big drinkers either when you were talking about that. And now, being an adult, I can see how I could always rely on my parents. I was never going to have a moment where I knew oh, if I call mom and dad, they'll be drunk. I would never think that. I still don't ever think about my parents. I know they're reliable, And I like that we can give that for our kids. I know that they can text us and we can come get them if they need to. Like, a big deal for me at the beginning of this past month was that they had a robotics competition and they were going to be there till 9 p.m. on a Saturday. Drinking me would have been so irritated by that because I wouldn't have been able to drink until I picked them up. I would have been like, oh my God, I got to drive and get my kids. And now I'm just like, oh yeah, I can drive and get the kids. That's no big deal. I just really appreciate that in myself. And I know our kids probably don't understand it at this point, but I know they will. And I also just know that we are better now at, like, if we get an email from a teacher saying so-and-so had this behavior issue, we're able to collaborate on it really quick, figure out what we're going to do parenting-wise, talk to our kid about it, and follow through. And I just know, I mean, I feel like as drinkers, we could have done it too. But I do know that as drinkers, like if I would have gotten the email and I would have had a buzz on already, I would have pushed it off.
Yeah.
I would have been like, I'm going to deal with that a little later. I don't want this to ruin my buzz. And instead, I'm able to be like, okay, this just needs to be dealt with head on and go for it. And I just appreciate that about myself more, and that I can trust my parenting intuition so much more now.
Agreed.
All right. I think we got through it. We had some tech issues in the beginning that nobody knows about.
We're actually just like 30 feet away from one another, but we were getting...
We were trying to record in the same room so we could videotape it. I wanted to be like rich roll. Didn't work.
I had to be in the yurt. Sarah's in the house. If we do it again, maybe we'll try to get the tech.
We'll figure it out.
The tech lined up, and I guess if people enjoyed having me as a guest, then maybe I'll come back. Let us know.
Yeah, let us know for sure. And on that note too, if you are enjoying the podcast, go give us a review. It doesn't take very long. You can just hit the star button on whatever app you're listening on and just let us know how we're doing. Usually it's Heather and I, but if you liked this one, go give us that 5-star review. And if you want to, leave a written review. But honestly, guys, just that quick hit the star really helps us out in the podcast algorithms. And it makes it so the podcast world thinks, hey, people like this. And then they give it to more people. And more people get this information. And I think it's important information to get out there for people. So if you're enjoying it, go hit that review button. And along those lines, be sure to check out the links in the show notes for the 30-day challenge and the Day Makers community. Those links are always in the show notes. So go check those out. And thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hope to see some of the listeners in the community.
Yeah. All right. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Bye.
Well, bye, y'all. Bye, y'all.